All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Endpoint Management. My name is Danny Guillory. I'm here with Rochelle as well as Dujan. Rochelle is one of our community managers from the tech community, and Dujan is one of our awesome MVPs. And as usual, my partner in crime, Steve. What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be emceeing this moving forward. So nice to virtually see all of you. And we already have a question coming in. So keep them coming in the tech community page. But the first question we have is from Peter. Where should one start when having a green field? Only Active Directory and hybrid joined devices, EMS E3 licenses available for SCCM and or Intune. Who wants to kick things off?
I think our awesome MVP should kick it off. Like I'll put Dujan on the spot.
Oh,
Point
wow.
one.
You could have put me there.
Break the ice, man. Break the ice. Go for it.
Right, we just have a look at that question again. Where should one? Greenfield. Um, let me see. Well, I guess in terms of starting there, I guess E3 licenses. Well, I tend to more, I guess, start maybe more around sort of the E5 licensing. I mean, going through sort of the um hybrid joint devices, especially around if you're looking into sort of upgrading some of the devices levels of the operating system. I guess one example is I'm dealing with some things at the moment where I'm actually going through sort of a Windows 10 Pro to Windows 10 Enterprise type activation, and with a lot of the devices having sort of the E5 licensing, that sort of makes it easier to sort of translate over and upgrade through that way. So I guess E3 is kind of a good place to sort of start with, but I tend to sort of maybe go up to more the E5 side. But yeah, that's kind of more my perspective on that question.
I'll add a little bit on. This is a question that I'll say probably I hear when I'm talking to like new customers or small, medium businesses. Like straight up, just start in the cloud. Start with a cloud Azure AD, start with cloud provisioning, start with the cloud. The way I would kind of summarize it, I mean, we could talk quite a while, but I'll kind of give you a quick summary. My methodology is more or less start in the cloud and find gaps. Those gaps don't mean you knee jerk to both basically old traditional on-prem methods, but those gaps that you may find, you may want to look at other cloud sources you can leverage, like other cloud services. Like maybe you want more security aspects, go look at endpoint security, look at MDE. There's other things you can do. So I would definitely say look at the cloud first, and then wherever there's gaps, those gaps really need to be evaluated to figure out if that traditional method is going to help or hurt your business. Like, is that cloud is going to help or hurt your business?
I couldn't agree more. And in this particular situation where you're at a fork where you can go cloud only, you can go cloud attached, you can go on prem. Obviously, we want to go. We want to make that left turn to the cloud, but what I would probably need a little bit more information. I would want to know, are these users going to be remote workers? What percentage of them? And I'd also want to know more about the app estate, as well.
All right, cool. Well, since we put Dejan on the spot, like on the first question, Dejan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little background. We broke the ice now, so all the gloves are off.
Oh, wow. Wow. I don't even know where to start. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess going through my background. So, yeah, I sort of specialize sort of around the SCCM, well, now MECM now, and things like Intune and code management. I've been sort of working with System Center for about maybe a good over a decade. So I'd say I got my start sort of around maybe the version maybe from 2007 all the way up to now. So yeah, I think I've got a pretty much good ground. I have ran into some places which still use versions even older than that. So I guess I could qualify as going down as far as SMS. So I'm quite happy for that experience too. So I'll note that down too.
Cool. So I mean, I'll just quick round of introductions. Danny Guillory, senior program manager. I specialize a lot in the co-management area. I deal with a lot of SCCM as well as Intune. I'm one of those weird PMs that straddle both. I own a little bit of features on it that are cloud only as well as configuration manager only. Steve?
Steve Thomas, Senior Program Manager. I'm actually on loan to field sales for 2 years. I'm halfway through that rotational program as well. So I'm living in both worlds, which has been quite enlightening for me. I've been in front of a lot more customers than usual, and I've been in front of a lot more state and local government customers, and I've gotten lots of great insights. And this question has actually come up because we have something very similar to what Peter was asking. They're looking to they're brand new to E3, and they want to know which way do we go. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's cloud only, especially within the last 3 months.
Yep. And I think we even have an episode that we're going to do on which way do we go. But
exactly,
we'll get to that later.
That's
Rochelle, last but not least, tell us a little bit.
Thank you. You saved the best for last. I know. I am Rochelle Blanchard. I'm a senior product manager as well. My focus is more on community engagement. So I work kind of as like the go-between between our engineers and PMs and our customers. So lots of stuff like this, our Microsoft Technical Takeoff, which is at the end of the month. So that's another cool opportunity that I'm helping out with, but just trying to connect our customers to our engineers so that we're getting your feedback and actually acting on it. So nice to meet everyone. And I see in here that Peter has a couple of follow-up questions, which is great. Thank you, Peter. The first one is, should SCCM be deployed first, or can Intune deployed it first and then SCCM after? What do we think, guys?
Do not deploy SCCM first. Like I wish I had like a red banner or sign. Do not deploy SCCM first. Not that anything is wrong with it, but that's a level of effort I would say you don't want to tackle first.
There can't be a worse feeling than going through all of the effort to stand up as config manager and then realize you really didn't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
What we're trying to do here is, make the life of the IT pro easier, and to reduce unnecessary work and unnecessary toil. In fact, just the other day, I stood up as config manager for the first time in quite a while, and I forgot what. It's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. I think a lot of people these days have sort of a very consolidated version of SCCM, so it's not that sort of huge in terms of what they use SCCM for. Some can sort of use it for maybe some reporting, or some just have it for patching and sort of balancing out between some of the affinity of sort of the co-management side. So I have seen somewhere they sort of put SCCM first, then Intune, but I would definitely go with Intune first, and then sort of assess exactly what you might need SCCM for going forward, and that would sort of make a better idea in terms of which one you'd go with. So.
All right, so this is actually, I'm just gonna kind of make this fun. I'm gonna wing this, and I'm sure the people behind the scenes are gonna be nervous as heck. So let's just debate. What if I went and do SCCM first? I am traditionally an SCCM guy. I'm gonna go do SCCM first. Like, why shouldn't I? Like, tell me why I shouldn't go do it, because that's what I'm used to. I know SCCM backwards and forwards. I'm gonna go deploy SCCM first. Why? Tell me why I'm making a mistake.
Let me see. I would probably say if you've got devices that can definitely be managed by Intune and they're all at the right, OS device levels, then I would say that would probably be the first thing I would go with. I would say a lot of places tend to go with SCCM as well, because of the fact that they've got a lot of mixture of different OS devices, and some are still dealing with a lot of legacy devices that probably like going down from maybe Windows 10 and lower build versions, and even lower than that. And that's sometimes some of the reasons why they still hang on to SCCM. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ones I can probably think of, and maybe eventually a few minutes I'll think of more. But that's the one I can think of at the moment. That's probably the biggest.
No, good stuff. Good stuff. I just kind of wanted to like wing it. Like we're here to have the conversation, educate the customers and the people watching, right? So I always find that interesting when we can have a different perspective and even banter between ourselves. Like, hey, it's why would you do that? Like, do you need to do all that? Like, oh my God. I mean,
Well,
either way, it's fun though.
also realize that when you go cloud only, you're transferring the cost, the labor, and the work of architecting the back end infrastructure. That's part of the value add of your E3 licensing. When you go SCCM, you're now tasked with the cost of
Oh yeah.
standing up
Oh yeah.
servers, and of course ensuring that it's well architected. So there's that to contend with as well.
Yep. Yep. All right, we can talk about that for a while, but I'm sure there's other questions coming in. Hey, I think that's the value, right? Let's have that. Let's have those debates when we can.
Yeah.
I like it, Danny. Thank you. Okay, we have another question that came in from Nigel. So moving from hybrid joined / co-managed to full cloud only, how can we tackle bringing applications over on scale? There are some great community projects for SCCM application to Win32, but thinking beyond just repackaging everything.
Oh, how much time do you have? This for the longest time, this was what I did at Microsoft, and we were always under there has constantly been in the one of the greatest things about the Windows app ecosystem is so much stuff runs on it, and we have so much flexibility with package installers, packaging formats. But at the same time, the worst thing about the Windows ecosystem is we have all this flexibility with packaging formats, and everything is supported. So there's always been this quest to find one packaging format to rule them all. For years we went into the concept of virtualization and state separation. Then there was the move toward Windows app modernization with UWP and taking MSIX and bringing that to the forefront of maturity to where that could be the one packaging format to rule them all. At the end of the day, what we wound up having to do in Endpoint Manager, especially Intune, is find something that would be a little more open and a little more flexible. For the most part, I encourage everyone to take advantage of the Win32 wrapper as much as possible. And the nice thing about that is it's something that can be automated. It can be plugged into, and as the person said, there are some great community projects out there. But for the meantime, I would look to number one, talking about look to Win32 as kind of the standard de facto packaging choice. The Intune Win format. Keep your eye out on the innovations that are coming with the Windows Package Manager. Danny and I will be visiting that topic probably a little bit down the line in a couple of months or so, because some of Danny's teammates have been working on some excellent stuff on that. But for right now, whether it's MSIX or if it's MSI, those are the way to go. Get off of some of these one-off installer formats. I encourage people to look for, what I consider enterprise-friendly or packaging-friendly environments for wrapping their applications.
Yeah, that
Cool.
question was interesting. The whole apps, moving them from the CM area to Intune area. I mean, there's community tools that help you move your apps from one to the other. So that's something I would say you could go after. It seems like every sprint or every semester, we as feature PMs, we talk about this one quite a bit. We're working on some things that may or may, I won't say may not, but some things that should help from having to actually move your apps from an CM to an Intune. But for now, you should definitely be looking at some of those community tools. I know lots of customers have used those tools. Heck, I've used a few of them myself. They're not bad. They're pretty good. They move the app. They do exactly what you want it to do, right? You don't want to repackage. I've got all my apps in Configuration Manager. Community tools will help you move those apps from one to the other. A lot of customers ask if Microsoft's going to do it. It just feels like every semester, at least the past 2 semesters, I've had to look into it. I'll take some accountability there. I've definitely looked into it with me and my team, and it just didn't make what I would say is the high priority list, right? It's definitely something we know customers have asked for quite often. It just never really makes a priority list because there are other things, believe me, you want us working on that this one just always seems to wind up under the cut line.
Well,
So,
and we have quite the we have so many professionals out there who do application packaging as well. So
yeah.
this allows them to stay busy at the same time. And I believe Brian Keller, I think you might know him, Danny, has a blog post on this as well, I believe.
Yeah, so my direct manager is Brian Keller, and he has put out. Oh, good, somebody put the link. So
Awesome.
somebody, there's already been lots of links, and I know there's a question about the store. So I would definitely check out the link that's on the screen right now. My direct manager, our team owns application management throughout the ecosystem. So go check out that blog. If you got any questions, make sure you hit us up on Tech Community, and we'll be definitely happy to sync back up with you one-on-one.
So there's lots of app questions today. So we're going to keep going on this path.
Bring them on.
This one's from Connor. App updating over MEM is still a big job for many teams, including my own. With the upcoming changes and integrations with the Microsoft Store, are you expecting much of this work to become automated as we head into 2023?
Yeah, myself and another guy specifically on apps, the app space. There are some things I'm working on. I know there's some things he's working on. So you should start to see those things show up in 2023.
Stay tuned.
Yep. Yeah. Even some of our shows later on, we'll start as those things come more into concrete and fruition. We'll definitely bring them here on the show to show them off. Should definitely stay in touch with, again, the blogs. Follow myself, Brian Keller, Mandar Chin. He's actually been on the show once before to talk about apps. Man, I don't know if we brought him up, if when he was on we talked about the store, but definitely check that past one out. Mandar Chin is the guy that's owns App Space too on my team. So check those two out, and we'll get him back once we got more concrete stuff to show off about that store integration.
Yeah, and Rochelle and Danny, I'm not surprised about the app questions. I mean, when you're talking about deciding with Config Manager versus Intune, whether to go co-management or cloud only, so many things are now quite simple to deploy from the cloud. Policies, especially things like conditional access, configuration, the settings catalog. So at the end of the day, a lot of folks are using the app factor as one of their primary, decision points there. But since we're talking about the latest capabilities in Endpoint Manager, I want to ask Dujan, what's your favorite new feature of Endpoint Manager in the last year? I'll put you on the spot there.
My favorite feature, I would say it's probably maybe a mix between two. I would say, well, I guess maybe one of the obvious ones, would probably be something around maybe like the auto patching feature. I think that's pretty handy in sort of managing the actual release schedule as well, and I think it just sort of helps the overall patching across all the devices managed in MEM a lot easier for me. So that I would say that's one feature. I think maybe another one is probably maybe more the filters, especially, and I guess maybe relating to sort of the background of SCCM is sort of using sort of inclusions and exclusions and sort of developing different dynamic query rules. I find the filtering definitely does help a lot because you can come up with very interesting ways to sort of come up with different layered groups and different dynamic membership rules. But I think the filters, especially having a good list of them, actually does help sort of smooth out a lot of the deployments, especially sort of around sort of application deployments and sort of the policies as well. So I would say probably between those two is probably my favorite ones. Maybe more on the filtering, but yeah, I would say those two for sure.
Yeah, for grouping and targeting, absolutely. Giving that additional granular option there also helps a lot of folks who are used to a lot of those capabilities in Config Manager now finding this to be a little more flexible for them to go cloud only as well. Yeah.
So bringing back to apps, which seems to be the topic of the day, we actually have a question on Twitter. about to best include apps when deploying via Autopilot? User groups or device groups? What if someone is in both groups? What happens then? Dujon, do you want to start off with this one?
Oh boy. Um, that's a very interesting one.
Great, we
Let me
got like
see.
30 minutes. Go ahead, take it off.
All right.
All yours.
Okay. Um, right. In terms of apps, to the best way to develop apps in Autopilot, I would probably, I would say definitely device groups, and there's many reasons for that. I would say device groups is definitely a lot easier, especially when you're talking about attaching autopilot profiles to machines as well. And then I think there's another aspect to it as well, and it could be, I guess, more of a best practice thing. But sometimes you get a lot of places where people like to enroll devices manually, or there could be some devices that could be sort of enrolled under a different primary user. There's cases where some users even have an untold amount of devices assigned to them, and I think probably not even just for autopilot, but one thing you don't want to do is sort of have something assigned to a user group, and then that particular user has about an untold amount of machines, and then they can all end up sort of getting the same policies or application deployments. But I guess autopilot, I mean, I guess that situation would only fall for that if you was to have every single machine go to autopilot. But good thing that that wouldn't really happen like that. But not like sort of how SECM would be if you did something like that and it had a task sequence deployment. So yeah, but yeah, I would say more device groups would be more best suited for that. You can do user groups as well, but you would definitely really have to be on top of how you sort of organize the groups and the actual devices that that user is the actual primary affinity user for. So I would say devices for me.
So I will chime in as well to always realize, how it's going to affect the user experience. And so when I'm making decisions like this, I'm also trying to keep in the back of my mind the remote worker that's going to get that device shipped directly from the OEM, and they're opening it up. And you have to realize that when you target something to users, and if this is something like a huge application, like a CAD application or something, that's not going to affect the user until the user goes through its initial logon as well. And so we want to try to not prolong that out of box experience as much as possible, which is why I tend to prefer device groups as well, Dujon.
Cool.
So a question for the audience, or for everybody here with me. What enrollment methods for devices do you guys predominantly use? Do you prefer Autopilot, Dujon?
Um, yeah, I I definitely prefer autopilot as definitely a good method. I mean, I guess for me, I try to ensure that the autopilot is kind of more suited for more of these sort of Azure-based autopilots rather than sort of the hybrid ones. Only because me personally, it's just so much sort of moving parts when you sort of do it in a hybrid Azure environment as well. So yeah, I would say autopilot is a preferred method for me to sort of do the sort of enrollment side of things. Yeah, you've also got things like sort of you've got like sort of things like GPOs as well, where they can come into play if you've got devices going through the Intune AD connector and synchronizing through that way as well. So I would say a mix between those two, but yeah, autopilot would be my sort of choice.
Danny.
Autopilot. I think you do autopilot. Like, it should be autopilot. Like everything else. I mean, we have lots of ways to enroll devices. Autopilot should be number one, especially if you're handing out devices. Like everything else tends to get confusing for customers because we do have a lot of ways to enroll devices, like group policy manuals, scripts. I mean, it's just so much cleaner and easier if you just do it through autopilot because
Yeah.
now you can have a more predictable experience for your deployments of apps and your users. It just really makes more sense. I get that some customers don't just do everything through autopilot, but when you got the opportunity, you should definitely do it through autopilot.
So we have another question from Alexej. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Apologies if I butchered the name. This is a longer one, so bear with me. I recently made a configuration profile in Intune, which sets the default app associations for Microsoft Edge browser and Windows. So far, so good. The policy gets applied on AADJ and AADR devices, says Intune, but in practice, the AADR device doesn't change the associations. Is it possible that AADR devices can't get this policy applied? And what are the Intune limitations for AADR devices? I really couldn't find any useful documentation. Who wants to start with this one?
Well, the quickest thing for them to do is to, go to settings, in settings, work account, I forget the exact thing, and you can actually click to find out what policies have actually applied to those devices. And it sounds to me like I would question whether or not the device is actually enrolled in Intune or not. It could just be that they've actually accessed it from. I mean, they're signed into Edge probably with an Azure AD account, and it's probably registered their device in Azure AD. But my concern would be, how is that looking on the Intune backend in terms of enrollment? And of course, if the policy is showing applied and there's still not an associations change there, I would recommend, taking advantage of the value add of V3 and opening up support case.
I'll also chime in there on that just to say thank you for calling out the documentation gap. Those are things that we can definitely go back to the docs team and give feedback on and hopefully improve it. So we will take that away from that question as well. Anyone else want to chime in on that question? Seemed pretty straightforward.
So I own a question for Dejan. Do you support remote workers, and are they predominantly Azure AD join or hybrid Azure AD join?
I would say for me, a lot of the remote workers that I see are probably more hybrid Azure domain joined. And I guess a lot of the challenges there is sort of incorporating configuration profiles with using the VPNs as well. I guess some of the challenges that I've seen is sort of where some of the devices are Windows 11, and sometimes the actual VPN profiles don't always work as great. So sometimes you might have to use sort of the OMA URI to sort of configure them that way as well. But yeah, I would say hybrid Azure AD is the most I've probably seen in terms of remote workers. But yeah, but we're thinking with a mixture of sort of Azure Autopilot and the VPN profiles sort of as a good way to sort of manage them. But that's pretty much my
What's the
experience on that.
reason? What's the most popular reason you found where customers do the hybrid join? Like what's holding them? We probably talked about this many times before on the show, but from an MVP, somebody that sees it every day with customers, like why? What makes them do the hybrid join?
Um, I always thought that the hybrid is always sort of that safe space, that bridge gap where they don't sort of want to just go fully completely into the cloud. And it's always sort of been that sort of checkpoint area where sort of having the best of both worlds, where you have sort of the on-premise side and then the cloud side as well. I think there's always some sort of hesitation on sort of going all the way to one area, and that's sort of been my experience in terms of why I see a lot of places sort of really stuck on the hybrid side. And I think before it used to sort of be a lot more organizations would be sort of more predominantly in the cloud and Azure, but I'm probably seeing it maybe grow a slight bit more on the hybrid Azure side.
So I'll peel it back one more time because that's very interesting from a perspective of somebody that helps create features and builds features. I've been like not really inclusive to the hybrid when I'm building features, creating features. But you mentioned a very specific word, being safe. It's a safe space.
Mhm.
is it the safe space because of the unknown, or is it uneducated? Because coming from being a customer, right? I've and I still hear this when I talk to customers today. When I'm scared of doing something new, I find that safe space, and I'm scared because I'm uneducated, or I'm scared of the unknown of what's going to happen. So is that still a thing? Because it feels like I still see that every day from customers.
Mm,
Like we were just talking about another customer I talked to that has it, that's on very old and antiquated technology, and now they want to
mm,
move forward. It's a huge mountain to climb.
mm.
And it's like you can't walk around anywhere in the world without hearing something about cloud, whether you're in the mall, pumping gas. Like, so is that is my articulation correct that the safe means uneducated and scared of the unknown? Because if you're educated, then you don't have to be scared. You don't have to, there's not the unknown. Is that, am I making sense? It just feels, it sounds, that's the way I process it in my head, at least.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I would say it's probably a combination of both. Maybe a slight bit more on the not educated side, because I think there's a lot of places that actually have hybrid when they don't really need to at all, and that's
That
definitely down.
that is
Yeah,
my point. That is
yeah,
exactly my point.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. All right, I'll stop. That was literally my point. Like you said, you took the words right out of my mouth.
We've validated Danny now today. He's gonna have a good rest of the day.
I know, right? My day is done. I'm taking a layup and I'm out.
Okay, we have a question from John on Tech Community. Is it possible that you can use configuration profile to copy files from network to a folder in the onboarded desktops? It has been a one-time copy, and after that, it should not check for it once it is copied. Any suggestions on how we could do this, or run a PowerShell script to copy it and verify it? Similar to how we install apps, can I do that? Using a
Ah,
batch command through Intune apps push?
I
Steve.
I'm gonna go on mute for
this
this.
goes back to the day of I call it apps as a hammer, everything's a nail, or more like configuration manager packages, where everybody's hammer. Where I would look at, let's say a customer had 1,200 config manager packages. In many cases, only like 2/3 of them were actually wrapping apps. A lot of times they were wrapping scripts and basically configuration. And they were treating it as a package or treating it as an app per se. And this is kind of a similar thing where this is not necessarily an app in terms of we're installing something and registering it with the install. What we're doing here is we're just putting stuff in specific places. And, I recommend when it comes to Intune, configuration profiles are for configuration where the knobs actually exist. Anything else that's going to be kind of what I call extensible, we have ways of deploying that. You can deploy PowerShell scripts using the same engine on the client that we do deploy apps. Sometimes people will leverage proactive remediations and endpoint analytics as well, especially because the nice thing about proactive remediations, if the user screws something up and removes it or deletes it, it can rerun, check to see if it's there. If it's not, then it can remediate. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it outside of leveraging a configuration profile, because a configuration profile is really designed to flip a knob, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I would say for a one-time like sort of copy function, then something like a PowerShell script would make more sense, and then something like a proactive remediation script would be the best way to sort of validate if that sort of action was sort of working or not, or how they would define it as compliant and non-compliant. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that for sure.
Cool. So Nigel is back with a second question. Thank you, Nigel, for participating with us today. Do we expect to see further premium add-ons in Intune? Remote help is a great leveraging of the existing quick assist, but lacks some features to convince the additional purchase.
Short answer, yes. Longer answer, Yes, like I have features that we're working on that will be a part of premium. There are other peers, feature PMs that I know we're working on other capabilities to bring into premium. So um the remote assist is the first of many that are soon to come to that premium stack. So
We might have an event coming up in the next few days that they might want to stay tuned for as well, because you never know, you might hear something new.
yep.
Yes, go to Ignite and then go to technical takeoff, because that's where we're going to have some fun conversations following some of that.
Hey, that bird, I guess has a question. Can you hear what question the bird is answering?
Oh, is that coming through? Yeah.
Or is the bird in the pool just having a great time? Because I'd rather be in pool too. Like,
Well, it's also driving a cat crazy right now, so I'm having to monitor the situation.
I think I understand the bird. I know what the question is. What was the last time you set up a brand new config manager infrastructure? Or when was? Sorry.
This morning.
Dujon, no. Oh man, I mean I have a configured infrastructure that I do a lot of testing with. It's cloud connected, commitment to attach things like that. Obviously, I own those spaces. So, but customer wise, it's been quite a while. And every time I get one of our IT people want to connect or build an SE, I'm like, why? What are you trying to do? Let's talk about this first. Like, what are you doing? And then we talk about other things. Not that it's a no, because obviously my Twitter handle is SEM Avenger, so I love SEM. But the tax you pay when building those infrastructures aren't necessarily something you probably need to do today. And it goes back literally what I was saying earlier, right? With this way with the genre, like it is uneducated, not knowing, right? It's so easy to knee jerk to what you already knew, right? If you know something, you're just gonna click, go download, install, and you're back to being, instead of exploring the new capabilities. And I think the new capabilities you explore with cloud, even if it doesn't make sense, that education you get from that exploring is good. Knee jerking to the bad thing just stops you from being educated about the new things, because those new things may make more sense than going stand up a SQL server, stand up another server, stand up a virtual machine, make sure it's got memory, spend an hour installing prerequisites before you can even use the thing, right? And then spend another 3 days configuring it.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I could cheat and say, I stand up config manager infrastructures at least monthly, but I would be not entirely truthful, because I'm just pushing a button and letting it automate and create in Azure. But
exactly.
last week, and I mentioned this earlier, I actually sat down and went through it step by step, and yeah, it's been a while.
I feel like Steve needs a hug after his week last week.
Yep. The bird too. The bird needs a hug too.
Yeah. So Dujon, since you're out in the real world, I'm curious to see what you are seeing as the most challenging problems in moving workloads to the cloud.
I think it probably depends on the workloads that they're sort of trying to move over to the cloud. I guess maybe the most popular ones I've come across, I guess one we covered before was sort of applications, sort of bringing those over to the cloud as well. And I think it's sort of it's basically sort of going down and actually filtering what you actually need to actually bring over and what you don't need to bring, because sometimes there's a lot of applications that probably need more regular patching than others. So it's sort of really basically assessing which apps you actually sort of need to really bring over in those kind of things. Other workloads, I guess, is sort of making a transition from sort of using sort of task sequences and gold image builds and then trying to transition into autopilot. That's probably been some of the most challenging ones I've seen, because I think a lot of people can have maybe not purposely, but maybe sometimes they might try and replicate a similar thing in that they're doing already in terms of those kind of builds, and trying to sort of turn Intune almost into like SCCM, where you kind of want to sort of refine the actual process that you've got in order to sort of make the transition. So I think it's more I mean, the technical side is one thing, but I suppose it's probably more of the planning. I guess that's probably more the challenging in terms of the transitioning of those workloads I've come across. So.
That makes sense. So I have a comment that has been posted that I kind of want to get your reactions to and have you chime in on. Hybrid Azure AD join is a destination, not a journey. I've seen so many customers digging themselves into a hole by staying hybrid. Safe means they're just scared of the change it takes to move. And as someone who evangelizes Endpoint Manager every day, I don't think it does enough to make it easier. I'll go as far as saying the GPO analytics tool is a step back, as it encourages a migration of your tech debt. And this is from James. What do you guys think about this?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. See what I did? So let's use the example of I've got my Lenovo like whatever it is, T1 from 2014 that was originally running Windows 7, and I wound up migrating it to Windows 10, and I hybrid domain joined it. Yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for that, because that device, that hardware is old. That hardware should have probably been retired, but will likely be retired the next year or two. And the new user is going to get a brand new secured device from hardware that's been manufactured in the last year or two, and is hopefully going to be running Windows 11 and Azure AD joined only. And I get for a lot of devices that's pretty much going to be, the case, especially the older, the legacy devices and the devices that we're going to likely be retiring once we, go through our hardware refresh cycle. As far as the comment about GPO analytics, I don't see the point from a policy transformation standpoint, because, the thing that customers enjoy the most about GP analytics in Intune is it's one of the first times that they're able to actually look at all of the policies that they have been putting deltas on every 6 to 12 months for the past 10 years or 15 years in some cases, and they can finally actually have a view, and actually they can rationalize going forward. So it's more of a transformation of process. Now, I get the concern about the migrate button being put in there, and I would agree with the commenter that don't just sit there and migrate your whole estate and push that. But for some cases, for especially a lot of our smaller customers, where they've done the rationalization, they've selected all of their policies, the migrate is a nice easy button for them, because my customers need easy buttons. My customers are very short staffed. My customers are sometimes having to do the job of 7 or 8 different IT pros, because they're working under limited budget. So I'm not necessarily agreeing with the migrate button as being necessarily bad or encouraging the retention of technical debt, because for some customers it's of great use. Now, for the commercial enterprise that has all of these legacy policies that they really don't need anymore, I would definitely encourage them not to migrate those to the cloud. What about you guys? What are your thoughts on that? I know I talked up a storm there. I mean,
Well, I mean, in terms of the comment, I would say it kind of represents, I guess, a real sort of accurate sort of reasoning as to why a lot of people sort of stay in the hybrid side, and sort of deeming it as sort of a safe environment. And I think when some customers have sort of legacy devices, I think it just gives them maybe that additional reason to sort of hold on to the hybrid environment more. So I would say, in terms of a lot of the real case scenarios I've seen, I would say it's quite fair to say, to be honest.
Okay, we've got a new question. So shifting gears, what's the best way to deal with inactive MEM devices? So test machines, levers, lost or stolen devices. When looking at vulnerability reporting in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal, because these devices don't disappear from reporting for 90 days after leaving MEM, they often give us a lot of false positives in our reporting. Who wants to take that one?
I'm going to assume their question is about the Defender portal more so than the Endpoint Manager console, because there's lots of things we can do in the Endpoint Manager console to speed up device cleanup. But I'm a bit on the spot here because I'm not that big of an expert on the Defender. I assume they're talking about the Defender for Endpoint portal. But this could be a topic that we could, possibly revisit in a later show. Maybe bring some of the MDE guys on.
It's a good idea.
Don't you love the way I say I don't know?
Dejan, what's a feature you're wanting to see in Intune or Endpoint Manager? Like when you're working with customers, is there a feature customers are asking for that they need to? And I want to ask it very pinpointed. Is there a feature that would help customers transition to cloud?
Yeah, if you had a magic wand and could wave your magic wand, what would appear?
Something to make it easier to transition from one to the other. I would say it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky to answer because I think a lot of people use SCCM for sort of many different things, and I suppose it's going to probably depend more on kind of how they use SCCM. That will sort of help them sort of understand what kind of tools they would need. I would say maybe things like the sort of the application migration thing is definitely one thing. Um, I guess areas in terms of I think especially around sort of like the software library stuff, like sort of OSD deployments and that kind of stuff. Maybe some kind of thing that would sort of be able to sort of analyze exactly how the sort of things like task sequences and sort of images are done, and then maybe sort of having a way of maybe building some kind of autopilot profile that will sort of replicate something like that as well. I think it's an interesting question. I mean, I think thinking for me in terms of sort of things I could sort of think of that would sort of help in that transition, I guess would be I guess for me, it would probably be maybe some kind of readiness kind of thing, I would guess. So sort of maybe something that maybe bridge the gap between people who are sort of maybe afraid to sort of go fully into the cloud, and maybe have something that would sort of maybe bridge the gap and say, well, this is kind of the level that the environment is in, and this is kind of what you need to sort of do to sort of get to sort of point A to point B. I would say something like that, probably more bridging the gap on the education of why it's probably better to be more predominantly in the cloud as opposed to sort of staying sort of in a sort of co-managed or sort of hybrid area. That's probably best thing I could think of.
Is that the answer you wanted, Danny?
I tried to
Well,
cover
yeah.
everything. I tried to-
And for anybody that's watching, if you have any magic wand requests, please share them with us at the Intune feedback site, aka.ms/Intune feedback.
You're muted, Danny.
I guess the thing that keeps coming up is it's more I used to be curious about it, and now I'll just be honest. It's like I'm more annoyed by it now. It's like the fear, like it's hard to detach myself from being an IT pro, and being a customer, or now being Microsoft. 20 years as a customer, 8 years at Microsoft still overrides every day of every decision, and it's the fear is real. But even when you had, if when you had tools, like we've had solution accelerators before, right? That gave us insights about our estate. But then the solution accelerators wouldn't make you comfortable. The solution accelerators would drive more work, more concern, more, because it shows you so much more about your estate, whether you knew or didn't know, right? And then you have to go confirm, double confirm, triple confirm, and then go through, God forbid, change management, right? And now it's like the change management conversations are literally the scare tactics, because everybody there is to tell you no and you're trying to convince them why and yes. So I hear the readiness tools, and I talk to customers lately, and even just did a session about being cloud ready, trying to take that and actually implement it, make it actionable, execute. From a customer perspective, as easy as we think it is now as Microsoft, I just think it is double harder for customers, because no matter what you read, no matter how comfortable you are, when you hit that button, the ball is going downhill, and you plan so much for the what if happens, right? The old crap that happens, that once the button's pressed, the old crap plan is not really realistic. The thing is to really just continue to go forward and get through. And I don't know, I struggle with the whole fear safe. Like, it's like the other comment about the hybrid join, like hybrid joins. I want to be fair to the IT pros out there. Hybrid join is not bad, but what are you getting when you end up in that situation? Just like the guy said, right? You wind up stuck there. Because now you're in this middle ground. And then when you're ready to go cloud only, what you realize is the light bulb is like, oh man, now it's even more tougher to do the thing. The goal is to be cloud only. But when you take that safe space because you're uneducated and just scared of the unknown, when it's the safe space and you're there. But then when you're ready to make the next step, it makes that next step even much harder. So I don't know. I'm ranting now, but that's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing fear, and it's like there's no technical way to solve that problem.
The roots of a lot of fear sometimes are trust, and with the trust, some of that is there are concerns of things like vulnerability, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to this: the IT pro wants to keep his or her job, and everything that relates to fear goes back to I don't want to risk losing my job. And I always, when I'm now talking to customers directly, especially when it comes to a lot of our state and local government customers, where we have things like critical infrastructure at play here. We have things like huge regulatory compliance, all the alphabet soup of the IT pro is almost having to have almost this legal record keeping knowledge, because they have to make sure that I got to tick this box, I got to tick this box, and it's not their fault. It's because of regulations and whatnot. So, the more things that we hear about, the more we're able to incorporate these things into our into our ecosystem to create more easy buttons and more things to ensure that you're meeting those compliance rules, that you're meeting those regulations, and constantly evolving and improving our product to ensure that you can trust it and that you can rely on it. And it's going to be a process, it's going to be a journey, and it's going to be a partnership. And it's who's right, who's wrong? Well, both sides are right, both sides are wrong at times. It depends. Okay, now that was my rant. I'm done.
Okay, we're going to close out with a little round robin of pro tips. So if you could each think of what would be the one thing you would want someone to walk away with today, what is your pro tip for the day? Danny needs time to think. He's in his thinking phase. So Steve or Dujon, which one of you wants to kick it off?
I'm happy to go first.
Okay.
Okay. I guess the pro tip, I guess with everything discussed, I think it's really more around sort of maybe analyzing the sort of setup environment situation that you have, and sort of maybe sort of trying to sort of understand what the actual end goal is, and then sort of understanding and sort of being and educating enough to sort of know exactly what the actual next step is. I think anything sort of around sort of whether that's sort of a transitional or sort of a migration or any kind of thing around sort of the transition. I think the more important thing is to sort of understand these sort of the reasons and the user cases and the reasons why you sort of got the certain environment set up, and sort of analyze exactly where you want to be and sort of what actually stops you or sort of restricts you around those kind of areas. And I think once you sort of got a good assessment of that, then I think you're in a sort of better position to know which direction to sort of take, especially when it sort of comes around sort of the migration from sort of a on-premise sort of a cloud perspective. So it's more sort of understanding exactly what the actual cases are, and sort of what you're actually using certain technologies for, and then knowing sort of the best way to sort of go forward. So yeah, that's pretty much my pro tip overall.
My pro tip is this, Dijon, you mentioned earlier that, readiness for Intune, some kind of readiness kit. We actually have something that we call the MMD Readiness Toolkit. Now, while it's designed for the Microsoft Managed Desktop, it actually verifies things like Office 365 connectivity, Intune endpoint connectivity, Azure AD. So it actually works for determining if your device is ready for any type of cloud management. So that's my pro tip.
Okay.
Good one, Steve. And we'll pop that link for everyone.
I will basically say exactly what I put back in chat. Education, like educate yourself. Microsoft can give you all the tools in the world, but if you, at the end of the day, don't know how to effectively use those tools, all you're going to do is have meeting after meeting after meeting, and you'll never end up in execution. So just reflecting on the things from this show, Ignite sessions I've done in the past, and every customer conversation I have, it is literally educating yourself about what tools you need or what things you need to achieve your goals, right? And then plan more, execute with precision. One of the things I would tell when I was in the military, I tell my team is more planning so we can have precision execution. If you spend more time executing than planning, you're bound to hit the dark corner, the thing you forgot. And that's it. That's all I got.
So our next episode is going to be on the 24th of October, which happens to be at our super exciting Microsoft Technical Takeoff event. It's going to be level 3 and 400 contents. We're really excited to engage at that level with our customers. Steve, Danny, and I will be there for Unpacking Endpoint Management live from Technical Takeoff. And we're going to be talking about cloud only or cloud attached. So a lot more on the which way do we go discussion. So hopefully we will see you all there. And thanks for tuning in today.
Later, everybody. Thanks for joining.
All right.